welcome back on another great week for the Prospect Podcast. We have a great guest on here today. As always, I have Derek, Coach D, Coach Derek DePostel, here with us, as always, to talk the best of the best out there in coaching and sports. Our guest today, Erica Mulholland, All-American soccer player at Johns Hopkins University. She's a performance coach. She's a youth soccer coach, and she wrote a fantastic book that we're going to talk more about called Female Athlete High Performance. I'm sorry. Not Female Athlete High Not Female Athlete High Sport. That was one of your guests. Just about the strong female athlete, and she wrote a book about talking about athletics and coaching and playing. And she went to Johns Hopkins University, so she's a lot smarter than myself, and so that's good. And we're excited to have her. So, welcome, Erica. If you could kind of just go into your background of what you're doing now, coaching wise, what you're doing working with young athletes, and then your playing background as well with soccer.
Sure. I've been a part of athletics pretty much since age 6 when I started playing soccer. But at that time, I was also dabbling in other sports and just doing a lot of movement in the neighborhood with my siblings and friends. So I've always been a really active kid. And it wasn't until high school where I got really serious about soccer and went onto a travel team and started to think about playing in college. And nowadays that would seem crazy to wait until high school to consider college, as you see so many kids now doing travel sports as young as age 8. That wasn't my journey. I was a little bit later, but I'm glad I was, because I really developed a passion for soccer and for strength and conditioning as well. I was doing strength training since middle and high school, and it really helped my soccer game physically, but also mentally with my confidence. And I started going through the recruiting process and ended up turning down Division I schools in the Big Ten and the ACC because I wanted to go to a smaller school and play Division III. I wanted to go to a good academic school, so I ended up choosing Johns Hopkins University. And for all 4 years that I was there, I earned a starting position, and I was captain my senior year and had a great experience in college. And then after that, I got into coaching full time. I was doing more soccer skills lessons, but I soon realized after a few months of that I was contributing to the early specialization and overuse problem. So then I decided to go full into only strength and conditioning for girls soccer players, because I was seeing a lot of overuse injuries at the time. ACL injuries were getting worse as well. So I started focusing more on the performance and injury reduction side of things. And I've been doing it for 13 years now, and it gets more fun each year, but it definitely gets harder as well, because we're living in a world where more girls are being pushed to play year round and specialize young. So as I continue to do this longer, it gets harder to have those conversations with parents and really tell them what is right. But I think that's what makes my job more fun as it goes on, because I like the challenge, and I think there's so much impact to be had for the younger ages.
Absolutely. And so the book you wrote is the Female Athlete High Performance, right? Was that you're married now, I'm assuming. That's your Erica Suter is your I'm confused here by that part of it. Explain that to me, because tell me about the Female Athlete High Performance book. What made you go into it? And what made you write a book there? Because I've seen a lot of stuff that you're talking on your podcasts about, a lot of different things, especially specifically ACL injuries, which I think is an important topic with girl athletes and being able to help develop them so those things are not as big as an issue. It's a huge issue with female athletes ACL injuries, especially non impact ACL injuries. But talk more about the book. Talk more about kind of within your your strength and conditioning program?
Yeah, well, I've always loved writing, and since I started coaching, I was blogging for many years and writing about youth training topics, female athlete specific topics, and just really trying to get the word out. And then I realized that I basically could just put all this in a book in one place. And I didn't see any sort of guide out there for youth female athletes specifically. I was really shocked there weren't that many books for parents and for coaches and for young girls. So that was really the inspiration behind it. I just wanted to give a really good, accessible resource for everyone. And my approach to female athlete training is more through empowerment. And early on in my career, I kind of fell into this, oh, well, female anatomy and girls are more likely to get ACLs. And yes, there is some truth to that. But at the end of the day, what our female athletes really need is to not be under strength trained and overtrained in their sport. So those things are controllable things. And when we're talking about female anatomy, I mean, girls can't control if they're born with wide hips or they have a knee valgus more than boys. So I wrote Female Athlete High Performance to really get the message across that female athletes should focus on performance and then health follows. So they should focus on being strong for their sport. They should do speed training. They should make sure they're well recovered. And yes, their performance in their sport will go up, but as a nice byproduct, they're going to reduce chance of injury. So I think I wanted to just get a different message out there because I talk to young girls and parents on a daily basis, and they're scared that they're females. They're scared that they're getting this other messaging, that they're doomed, that they're more likely to get ACL. And I'm here to tell them that you can control many factors in injury, and that's the good news.
That, so injuries is like as far as especially with youth sports and overuse, especially playing one sport in soccer. You know, your sport happens to be one obviously that a lot of athletes play. You know, year round just from the time they're very little. A lot of times, and the way that especially and you probably know this better than me. I noticed as a naive parent who at one point put my kid in soccer in travel soccer, but um, uh, soccer's in the fall. They have in the winter. They have different programs that they're playing in all winter long indoors, and then outdoors. The club is playing again, obviously in the spring season through the summer. Talk about how you're working, especially with soccer, to try and help them understand the importance of balancing that all out. Are you an advocate for multiple sports? What kind of your thought process there?
Well, it's really interesting in the soccer community because it's probably the sport that suffers the most ACL injuries, and they're the sport that does the least about it. A lot of
That's usually
soccer
how it
players,
works.
yeah, a lot of soccer players aren't getting in the gym as much as other sports, especially on the girls' side. Of course, it's better than it was even just 5 years ago, but I think we're still trying to get more girls' soccer players into the gym and also not being afraid of loading heavy. And not being afraid of moving away from those 10-pound dumbbells that you've been lifting for a year straight. So I'm just really trying my best to educate the athletes, but also the parents. I think in the youth space, it's really important to include the parents in the conversation and explain to them why we do strength training, how it's going to help them handle the demands of year-round soccer, but also letting them know sometimes you have to make a hard decision and say no to year round at times, and to make sure there's 1 to 2 full off days a week on the micro level, and then an off season on the macro level, whether that's 1 to 2 months. So I think educating the parents is so key. And I've had a lot of good response just with the athletes I've worked with here. I've gotten a lot of girls to continue to strength train in season, and they're not as scared about it, because again, I just have to educate the parents that my workouts in season aren't ever gonna cause an athlete to be sore for practice. They should never take away from their soccer training. It should make them feel good and empowered and healthy. So I've gotten more girls to continue in season. And I think that's really half the battle, because I used to see a lot of girls just do training in the summer. They get super strong and then they fall off during the season, and then their muscles just atrophy at that point for the 9 months that you don't see them. So yeah, it's still a fight, and there's still some people that it goes in one ear and out the other. But if I can continue to educate and even just get a couple people on board and help those people, then that's a win.
Erica, do you think that the lack of female soccer players utilizing the weight room or working out on a regular basis, do you think that's a direct correlation with the push to constantly play and, season after season after season? Do you think that contributes to that factor of them not utilizing the weight room, or do you think it's more just overall kind of almost out of the box thinking when it came to females soccer, in terms of not many people push that? So, you know what I mean? Is that kind of the thought process there?
I think so. I think a lot of it has to do with girls being overscheduled. So a lot of them do practice 3 to 4 times a week if they're on a pretty high level travel team nowadays. And I think parents are overwhelmed with all the driving they have to do. And some girls are commuting 45 minutes to an hour each way to practice. So to ask them to do in-season strength training can be a bit of a challenge, but I've had to really adapt over the years and kind of change my offerings. And now I do in-person, I do hybrid, which is a combination between in-person and remote, and then I do remote. So for girls and parents who don't want to commute to me, or who only have time to do a quick 30-minute home workout, then great, do remote or check in with me in person a couple times a month. So I've tried to be more flexible with people, because
Right.
I don't want my strength sessions to take away or compete with the soccer schedule. I'm just trying to set athletes up for success based on what their schedule is and how busy they are. But I've also seen some families just overschedule like tons of activities within a single season. So I'm all for early sampling in multiple sports, but if there's a girl doing soccer and then cross country in the same season, then at that point she's just breaking down her muscles and she's never having that time to repair. And then she doesn't have time to strength train. So that's also a recipe for disaster. So that's another way I'm trying to educate parents is, yes, sampling's good, but you don't want to do it in the same season, because there's that lack of recovery. And when there's a lack of recovery, there's fatigue, and fatigue increases injury. So, yeah, just trying to educate on that as well.
Right. And you go ahead, Dave.
No, part of the issue too in soccer is, and I don't know if I'm assuming it's somewhat similar, just because I'm pretty familiar with some of the club stuff, is that the parents probably get into a little issue in the sense that if they're booked for this fall, they're booked for the spring, and their kid wants to play another sport, there's a ton of pressure from the soccer club side, from the guys that coach them, to, you gotta be here, and then they're paying a good amount too, right? Soccer clubs are a lot of them are not cheap, so they feel that pull and that pressure. So I do think that's some of the issue, is that you feel the squeeze. Okay, my kid would like to play, let's say, cross country and soccer is a tough one to do at the same time because there's so much running. But let's say they were like a soccer basketball player or soccer softball player or something like that, right? Like, how do you advise them to manage their soccer coach, their club, on that aspect of it, right? Because there is a lot of the really good soccer players, I've seen it, they get, especially as they're moving up, they're constantly told that they're going to be, you're not going to be as good as you are, and a lot of parents don't know what's going on, so they just think, oh, I guess got to keep them in this. So they try to double out and do all these different things. and that's where they get to the problem. I mean, I see it a lot with kids in my son. He doesn't play soccer anymore, but like with things that he does. But I see a lot of it with his friends. I'm amazed. I've seen kids go from lacrosse, soccer, and baseball like in the spring in the same week. Like they're literally. I've seen them sometimes do it in the same day. Some kids and now some of the kids that are doing it they happen to be very good athletes and they're somehow surviving it because they're so athletically gifted. But how do you advise them on that? Because that's a difficult conversation with soccer coaches, especially since a lot of the soccer coaches, at least where I am, are actually like they're all in on soccer. They're usually like they hire a separate soccer club. It's not dads running it. It's like a soccer training group that runs it, and a lot of these guys are paid to make them the best that they can. That's kind of the deal there.
Yeah, well, my thing is, and this is for all youth sports, and you mentioned baseball and lacrosse, and we're wondering why these young boys are getting Tommy John surgeries at age 12, and then with girls soccer and cross country at the same time, we're wondering why 12-year-old girls are getting ACL tears. And my thing is, guys, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again,
right,
and expecting different results. And again, as I was saying, a lot of people will listen, but then others, it'll go in one ear and out the other. But what I've seen is some people, something bad will happen, whether their kid suffers a catastrophic injury or they burn out, they will come back to me. And this has happened many times. They will come back and be like, we should have listened to you. And I honestly hate when that happens because I had wished they had listened at first, but sometimes it takes a rock bottom event for people to finally be like, oh, we messed this up. We shouldn't have been early specializing, playing year round, having no off seasons. And I've seen it anecdotally, and then the evidence is strong on the early specialization studies. And I think the biggest lie parents are told, especially with young ones, so I'm talking under 13, before those high school years, the biggest lie all these parents are told is, if you are not on the best travel team at these younger ages, you will fall behind, or you won't play in college, or worse yet, you won't make the travel team when you turn 13.
Right.
And I can tell you, I host a podcast. I have interviewed many Division I and professional women's athletes. They all early sampled. A lot of them played rec until age 12, 13, and then they got serious about soccer in high school. Alex Morgan was the same. Abby Wambach was the same as well. And you have all these great case studies. And I think if kids can just become well-rounded athletes and we let the clock do its job and we get out of the way and they have fun with it, they will make that travel team when they're 13 or 14. But I think a lot of these clubs are lying to them to get them on that team before the team, because the biggest moneymaker in clubs is the younger ages.
Of course.
Of course.
And
absolutely.
I've recently seen like a U8 elite team, a U8 travel team. And at that age, I mean, it should just be rec. It should be fun. And honestly, I tell moms and dads, you're probably a better coach just playing and messing around in the backyard with a soccer ball than paying fees the whole year for your 8-year-old. Yeah. And like when I was growing up, I was on a rec soccer team, but then I was playing tackle football. I was playing capture the flag, and that was probably the best agility and speed training and aggressiveness training I could have gotten for soccer. Mm-hmm. So, and it was all free. And I just get so sad when I see parents of young ones being preyed on. And I think parents just need to be really aware and just kind of go against the crowd.
A lot of it is keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly.
It is even. I would almost, at least in the suburban areas, this is like I can tell you that it seems to be as much keeping up with the Joneses. Johnny, was on this team, I should be on some team. And willingly going in and doing it. It's funny because if I hadn't been my son plays football and that's always a sport he loved, but we we were like, he was playing recreation soccer when he was, they all were doing it like at 4, 5, 6. And then he showed aptitude there, and they convinced me to go into a soccer club, and I did it. And I could tell you that it was 10 times the fees of anything else that I had done before. Okay. And I knew my kid was probably, I'm a football coach, he probably would end up playing football at some point, but at the time, he wasn't doing that. I was just doing like, I don't know, maybe he was doing flag. I don't know. But it was funny because like right after I did it, like I realized, oh my God, like literally 3 months into it, I was like, oh my goodness, this commitment level. He was like 7, the commitment level was crazy. And if we missed a practice, like, but by the end, like the guy, and I'm friends with the director of the club, I know him really well, and I was like, man, I can't, like he misses a practice for some reason, and he's outcasted, and he's over there running, and like it was nonsense. I'm like, what are we doing? So it was crazy to me, and and they already like had set positions like at 7. They're like, oh, he's fast, so he's gonna play forward. I'm like, well, how do we know he's like? How do we know he's not good at this position or he's that? So it's wild, but I think what you're talking about is definitely true. But the keeping of the Joneses is a big, a huge part of it. So a dad or mom talking to another dad or mom and saying, hey, my kid plays this and he really likes it. And, are you interested in doing it? Or if you really want to be good at this, you should come over here. And then once you're in it, you realize like, dude, these kids are not good. Like my rec league, where like, like if you happen to play, like, I don't know, let's say they combine 2nd and 3rd together or 4th and 5th together. Well, if your kid happens to be younger and he's 4th grade, he's pretty good. Well, just the fact that he's playing against 5th graders who are a year older, they're way better than the travel kids are playing against, just athletically and physically. So, like in rec, you're almost getting like when you're kind of combining the same age groups, it's literally like playing travel soccer. Or and other sports, it's the same way. I mean, baseball. I say this in baseball because my son is on the travel baseball team, and this is what we chuckle about. Okay, I see people paying 10 times the amount in baseball. We pay a very low amount in the place that we play at, right? But in rec, he's in 4th grade. We're on rec is 4th and 5th. So the 5th graders are pitching 10 times faster than the 4th graders. So when you're in rec, you're getting a travel experience. You know what I mean? That's the crazy part, and that's the part that I think parents, especially suburban parents, have a hard time with. That like they're overscheduling their kids, and I think they get into that aspect of it. My big question is on strength and conditioning, because this is hard, speed development, right? How do you? We've interviewed a lot of guys. I don't know if you're familiar with Tony Holler, but one of the things that I love that Tony does, and it resonates with me with athletes who are probably overscheduled to a certain extent, is this micro dosing of strength and conditioning or speed development.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about like how you kind of introduce that and help parents understand how important that is?
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of speed and doing it year round. And the issue with soccer players is, especially at the youth level, they're practicing on a field with 3 other teams. So the space that they have is maybe at most a 20 by 20 yard, maybe 20 by 30 yard. So they don't really have the space to get a full top speed sprint of over 30 to 40 yards. So my job is to fill in that bucket, and we've had really great success just doing 10 to 15 minute speed workouts, even just once a week during the season, and doing that throughout the whole year. And then in the summer, we up that to 2 to 3 times a week. So it's been really great for not just improving speed, but helping with injury reduction, because we're really building the hamstrings and getting athletes used to those higher velocity movements that they will experience on a full soccer field in 11v11 game. So I'm a huge fan, and I love Tony Holler. I think his atomic workout is easy for anyone to implement. And the issue is, though, in soccer too, is people think that speed training is the tap dancing through the ladders. It's huge in the soccer community. I mean, you see these videos on Instagram where they like do these toe taps on the ball, then run through the ladder. And I'm like, all you're doing is really just making your feet more sore and wasting an hour of your time. So soccer players just aren't getting enough of those fat twitch movements, and they're not working in that less than 6 seconds of max effort of work. They're doing more of the long duration aerobic work, so they're ticking that box a lot, but they're not twitchy enough. And I've seen with a lot of the kids that early specialize or do so many soccer skill sessions, they're slow as heck. Like they are not someone I would recruit for my college team. And I mean, but you mentioned it. It's like they're playing so much of their sport. They're not even getting better at the thing they're trying to get better at. Like, they're just so one-dimensional. They're not well-rounded. They don't have the coordination and explosiveness to even play the game. And beyond that, they don't have the spatial awareness or the reactive ability, because everything they're doing is so robotic, and they're doing the same thing over and over again. Whereas if they're doing other sports, they're learning new ways to react and how to respond to new environments and stimuli. If you're just playing one sport, then your decision making for your one sport is actually suffering, because it's too one-dimensional. And with soccer, a lot of these young kids, they're looking down a lot at practice, but maybe if they played lacrosse or basketball, they'd be forced to look up and have their head on a swivel. So it's like, I don't know, I just feel like I'm selling common sense back to people, but
yeah, you probably are.
but like, at least it's something, the specialization model, it's something, neither Dave or I grew up with, right? It was, we played, and we've talked about this a lot. Even though we were both guys and that was like our thing, we were excited when the season ended to go to something else, right? Like, just to switch it up and go to, hey, now it's basketball season. Hey, now it's track season. And not for anything else other than it wasn't the same thing over and over and over and over again, right? Those stagnant practices, you know what's going on. Now you go to a new sport. Hey, maybe you weren't the best player. Maybe you were the best player in football, but now in basketball, you're not the best player. Maybe now you're the sixth man, and you have to kind of figure out how to know that role or play that role. I think some of that stuff correlates across the board when you play sports. It only improves you when you get back to your quote main sport, right? And then the burnout level that we see from doing the same sport over and over and over again just continues to increase because of that stagnation of, we're just doing this over and over and over again. And I think, like you said, parents get caught in that, oh, well, Jimmy, his best friend, plays on this team, and now we need to do this. Or, oh, did you see that post? And look at that. Like, oh, now they're they're getting this, they're traveling over here. And like Dave said, like, to keep up with the Joneses, there's a lot of that conversation that goes on, outside the field that has nothing to do with anything, where parents just chirp, 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 and they all want to be on that certain level. We have to do this because we need our child to be the same as that child, and they're not going to get there if they don't do this. Like, to break that mold, like you said, is really, really difficult. And it takes a strong parent and a strong, no, we're going to do it this way to kind of do that. And that's hard to find, right? I mean, that's really hard, especially because I don't blame parents for certain things because look, that's their prized possession and they think they're doing what's right. I think what's missing is that educational piece or the real support of it where like you need to have those really hard conversations at a younger age now, right? Like that didn't that used to not have to happen until high school when the high school coach said, look, I think you're this level. Let's track that. Now, by the time I get them in high school, they've been told they are the greatest thing since sliced bread and they've played on 1,000 teams and, hey, you got to come work out. Well, what do you mean? I have a travel game. It's like, well, this is a pivotal piece that you need to do. It's really hard to kind of get that across. I think that's the struggle right now that's going on in youth sports.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the mental piece you mentioned is the one I'm more concerned about because I've seen that too. I've seen girls who are just done. I had a conversation with two 12-year-olds last night, and they were telling me that their soccer season was finally over. And I was like, so you guys are happy for a month off? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes. And they're like, we get to have sleepovers. We get to do kid things.
We get to have a life.
I'm like, exactly. And even I'm like, they do my training and we do a lot of variety for 12-year-olds. We do rock climbing, we do dodgeball. So we're not doing the same thing over and over. And I told them, and I was like, you guys, we're not even training together this month. I'm giving you guys a month off as well. Like, don't come to my trainings. And they're like, oh, darn. Like, we actually like your training.
No, look, it's a real thing in terms of the burnout. And look, obviously we've all seen, like, even on a professional level, the mental health side of sports becomes such a big thing in the news or, you know, social media based where, yeah, that's a big piece. And if you're not like, if you're a 12-year-old and you're already unhappy doing the thing that's supposed to be bringing you joy, like, what are we really talking about here? You know what I'm saying? It's a hard conversation I have with my freshmen when they come in the door. You know, it's like, hey, this is a commitment on a different level. You're now taking a step up, right? So if you don't love this sport, and I mean like love it, like then you got to understand where you're going to go with it because the time commitment to it, right? All of the other things that we're going to ask you to do. If you tell me you want to play in college, we're going to track you a certain way, right? Like ultimately we're going to like track you to take different classes in school just because you're going to, if you want to trend that way, it needs to start at that level. So if you're not into this, like it's okay. Like it is okay to not want to play football or not want to play your sport, right? Now that might be a different conversation when you get in the car and you're sitting at the dinner table, but ultimately like this is how we look at it and how we approach it.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things is like, and I haven't worked this out yet, but I'm completely. But I'm coming up with like a theory of like when there are hot times, but it goes back to the original how sports were. Like you played in your season, and my thing is like, let's say you play soccer. Like let's say soccer is mainly in the fall. Well, fall. Okay, let's say it's in the fall, and let's say basketball's in the winter, and I don't know, baseball or softball's in the spring. If you're outside of like your main part of the season, you're probably either should be doing training. If you're going to play your sport, you're either doing training or games. But I don't think you can do both out of your season because otherwise you start to get like when people are doing, if you're doing 2 or 3 practices a week all year round in your season and playing tournaments and games, I think that completely contributes to burnout. But if someone wants to like play, let's say they want to play, they're a football player, use that for example, and you want to play flag football in the spring, okay? Say that as a good example. Why practice? You're going to get from competition, like you're going to get competing a lot of the important skill base. Now you could say, okay, as they get older, you're refocusing on them. It's kind of like a funnel, right? Like, so as you get their level gets higher and their seriousness gets higher as they get older, now you can add in if they want to do it all year round as they get to 13 and 14 or 15 or whatever, or they want to be a 2-sport athlete. I think you could do it that way. But I think what happens is like when you're doing everything all the time, it just kind of never you like you said, you never not only do you never get a rest, but you start to look at your sport like a job. You know what I mean? Like so one of the things I like, and I'm using football as an example because that's probably what I know best, but you play tackle football in the fall, right? And let's say you practice in youth, you're practicing like 3 days a week. Obviously, in high school, you're practicing every day, but in youth, you're practicing 3 days a week. If you were to go do that again, even if you're playing flag football, 3 days of practice a week, and then you're playing flag football games, you're just gonna be like, I'm done with football. Like you're not even gonna want to play in your main season when it's most important. So I'm like, well, you know what? I don't know. Maybe you can have a couple practices before the flag football season starts, but for the most part, just go play games. If you're going to do it that way, right? Or do it the opposite way. You don't play any flag football, and if you're, let's say, a receiver and you want to run routes and catch, you know what I mean, and you're going to run track in the spring, you do that. You get your routes in, you get your catching in. But if you're doing both, practicing and an excessive amount of games, all the time, I think it really starts to. And I haven't worked out this theory completely, but I after listening to a lot of stuff that Tony Holler talks about, like a kid says to you, "Hey, I'm not feeling great today. You know what? Like like their body, dude. Don't do anything today. Like
you're good.
Don't do anything today. Just don't." Because one of the things I thought that he said, which I think is really, really true. He said that, most of the time, if they take that one day off that they need, the next day they're perfectly good because they're kids and they recover for the most part pretty quickly. But if you keep grinding them instead of giving them that day off, then
that's it.
It starts to build, and injuries start to happen, and you don't know why they're happening. You don't even know what the injury is sometimes, So
right.
But you just when they push back, if they push back and they like really are like, I'm not feeling great. You know what? I hate to say this because I'm a parent because video games drive me not like these games on iPad and stuff drive me nuts. But go ahead, just like go play with your friends if you want to go on your iPad for an hour or so. Whatever calms it down for you a little bit. I think that's important. Because I think when they get to Derek in high school, right, and the last thing you want is a kid who's a really good, let's say Derek coaches football, really good football player, to go and come out for freshman football and just be like, you know what, I just don't want to do this shit.
Yeah. I'm done. I'm done. And you see it, whether it's grinding them, coaches grinding on them. Right now, they have a certain interpretation. Like I'm going to now be that type of guy or that type of coach towards them. And then when I tell them, "Hey, man, you're good. Like take time," it's like, "Wait, coach, what do you mean? Like I don't have to?" It's like, well, if you're telling me, buddy, that like you don't feel right, I'm going to put the trust in you that your body and tell me, okay, hey, coach, give me a couple reps here and I'll be good. Right. And we can now track that, and Tony does a great job about tracking the amount of, and all that type of stuff with it and coaches. And it's ultimately at the end of the day, it shows us that when we pull back a little bit on them, they're healthier, especially with a sport like football that physically and that stuff is grinding, and it is you're not healthy majority of the time, and you need to know when you're hurt or when you're injured and those types of things. That self-awareness might not be there because you've been pushed from the time they were so young that like, hey, you got to be out there, you got to do this, like all those kind of things. They don't even know that. And it's like, all right, now what's the risk for reward? I'm going to push this kid to practice on Wednesday he's not full go on Friday. Like, it's mind boggling. Right. But that's so real. And for you, Erica, to kind of take that next level and kind of understand that, having been at such a high level, right? Because I am sure that you had teammates that grinded and pushed and did all of those things from a young age, and by the time they were at a high level of soccer, they were done, and you were still, hey, I didn't start this till whatever, and now I'm still good to go, right? And I haven't had, an ACL already, right? And now you're already post one surgery, right? What happens when the next one comes, right? It's just, it's wild.
Yeah, the recovery and the taking off days is so key, because if athletes don't do those, then they're not going to have the output they want for an intense training session to really reap the benefits of it. So look, I'm all for grinding, but as long as it's intentional and focused
Correct.
grinding. I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people think that grinding is quantity over quality,
Oh,
but
so
it's
you
also
said that.
that quality. So yeah, like when I was playing at a high level and working to get recruited, I was grinding in a way that was focused. And then I took the weekends off during my summer off season. I didn't do extra skill sessions. I didn't run extra sprints at the field. I let those work days be full work days and focused in on those. And then I recovered and I enjoyed my summer. So I think everyone needs to really think about, what is my definition of grind?
Right.
And is it allowing me to have optimal outputs in my training sessions to actually even get benefit from what I'm doing? Because I think some people think that, it's just going through the motions and getting in lots of sessions and lots of touches. But if you're going at half speed, or the technique
Right.
isn't there, then it's just not really worth it.
Right. Like if that ladder session that you had to get in because it's, everybody's doing, like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, what are you really getting out of that? And do you even know why you're doing it? Like, this is the why generation. I know that every drill, every practice session, I'm going to have kids that are going to question, Coach, why the hell are we doing this? Like, this doesn't, you need to have, even when we were in the weight room, right? Like, Coach, I'm doing these mindless exercises. Like, well, don't make them mindless. Explain to them you're doing this because it directly correlates to when you do this on the field. That's why this is going to help you or make you better. And I've found that now allows those kids with that level of understanding why they're actually doing what they're doing, or the movement that they're doing, all of those things. It now allows them to be more accepting of it, and you're not pushing them. And now you're not the bad guy. The other day, sometimes, do I have to be that guy that pushes them through that wall? But that's more for them just understanding who they are and what level of push, or where their wall is, that they kind of have to move a little bit. I think the understanding level is different once that maturity comes, right? And I think understanding all of that and allowing them to understand that will, now they themselves will push harder and go further for you to a healthy level.
One of the things that having run track and coached it for a long time, one of the things that I think, and this is where obviously Tony's experience and things he learned, and I learned this when I was coaching track. I learned it from one of my athletes, and I had a kid that was mega explosive athlete. He ran track in college, but he was a great football player. But he ran track in college, and people used to be like, "Oh, he's lazy and he doesn't like to work." And I always think, this is Anthony Pomo. So they used to say it was late. Now, meanwhile, in the track meet, he would do the 100-meter dash, the high hurdles, the long jump, and the triple jump. Right. So, but everyone would call him lazy. Meanwhile, they were running one event. But he was super explosive, and because he was so explosive,
like a cheetah.
If you worked him too much, like I'm telling you, he would get hurt. Like he was 5'8", 150 pounds, but literally like a 23-foot long jumper in high school. State champ in 100. Ran 13.9 the high hurdles in high school. Triple jump 45 feet.
Yeah,
stud
he was a stud.
But it was funny because and Derek will appreciate because he know. I think you might be this. You guys are around the same age, maybe, right?
Same age, same graduating class.
The kid should have played football in college, but he was a quarterback in high school, and he really wasn't going to play quarterback in college. But he should have played football in college somewhere. But he went and ran track because I felt like he got grinded on a lot in high school and football, and I was an assistant coach on the staff at the time, but I felt like they would be all over him because he wasn't a guy that was going to lead every sprint. Okay. He was not like, he didn't see the purpose. And he was very much among the first people of the Y generation, meaning like, he'd be like, why are we doing this? Like, because in his head, and he was right, by the way, in his head, he was faster than everybody. He was the most explosive athlete. And here we are running 300 million sprints at the end of practice, where he's last in almost every single one of them.
Yep.
Okay.
And then he's lazy.
And they were saying he's lazy. Well, who are you giving the ball to in the fourth quarter? Like, obviously he was gonna be the guy. So what people didn't understand back then was that like he was such an explosive athlete. He was a cat, man. Like, just get him doing what he needed to do. And I think Tony really identified that really, really well. And when I coached him in track, and I was his long jump coach and his sprints coach, I could tell you, our long jump practice, they used to laugh when we would do long jump practice. We would get in there at 3:00. Our warm-ups, because my father was the head coach, we would warm up like with like jumping jacks and stretches and all this stuff for like 20 minutes, okay? We would literally go in, we get our steps, we do some pop-ups, land in the pit, and we were out there. We were gone at like 3:50. Like, I'd be walking out the door, and my father would be like, "You're done?" I'm like, "They're done." And we had at one time 5 long jumpers over 20 feet. My school was a Group 1 school, tiny school, 300 kids school. 5 kids over 20 feet. We had 3 20 plus 21 plus footers. And it was really, I learned it from Anthony. Like, he could not handle like bounding, all the kind of bounding all the time. Meanwhile, his vertical jump was probably like 38 inches. It was crazy. For like, we do a broad jump test at the beginning. I remember the first time I had him as a sophomore. He came out for track and he broad jumped, and we tested everybody in the broad jump, and he went like 9.6. Like, it was crazy. And he was like a sophomore. He went 9.6, and he went farther than everybody else. Didn't know, because he was a baseball player originally. Didn't know anything. And we would do the work that he needed to do, and he got better. And back then, I didn't think about it that way. I just thought, you know what, like, whatever gets Anthony.
Well, nobody thought about it that way. You know what I mean? Nobody thought it that way. We were all, for the most part, right? You coached the way you were coached. And we were from that militant discipline. We do what I say. This is why there was no explanation to why you do it. You just did it. You didn't know the long-term effect of what was ultimately like, man, I just don't feel right today. Like, I'm tired. Like, why? Like, my legs are sore. And then you didn't look back and realize, well, we ran, 10 gassers, right? Like, the day before a game because coach was pissed somebody wore the wrong socks. Like, what are we talking about, right? Like, in the grand scheme of trying to get the most out of your athletes, like, there needs to be a level of understanding the physicality that you're putting into certain things, and all of those, and to follow suit, right? Also, the communication now so many youth athletes are doing more than ever now other things, right? There's more opportunities, right? Like, only the best of the best played on club teams back in the day. Now everyone plays on a club team, or, it's that keeping up with the Joneses, and the communication between a club coach and a high school coach, the school coach. Where is that, right? Like, we make sure we tell our guys that, hey, if you're going to go and do your extra one-on-one training or whatever, you better tell that trainer tonight when you go that you just squatted today in the weight room and you went heavy, right? Here's the workout. Tell them your workout. So now you're not crushing the same thing over and over. And I'm sure you deal with that a lot as well, Erica, because, what did you do today at practice? Or, you know what I mean? You don't want to, you're the one that's aware of it. Whereas the other coach per se, or even that's where, like, it's a parent's job to be like, hey, they did this today at practice, or they, whatever, but they sometimes don't understand that. They're just driving. They're the Uber, right? Like, it's the communication, I think, needs to be, so that everybody's on the same page. We all say we want the best for our kids and our athletes, but like, do you really, or are you just trying to get them to book another 30 sessions or to play on that team? Like, it's really hard. Like, and Eric, I'm sure you see it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I continue to fight, but I think you can only educate so much, and some people do listen, some people don't, or they come back around. And I think the more I can just be vocal about it, whether that's online or with my own clients, it's the best I can do. So
no, you're doing a great job. And look, we need more advocates like you that are willing to go out on a limb and, you know, maybe you're looked at in a certain way. You know what? That's okay too.
I have one final question, which is kind of the opposite thought of the kid I brought up. And I just thought about this now, right? We're talking about great athlete and like he's like a cat, that kind of thing. The kid who has a ways to go. And those a lot of times are the parents that are pushing them to do more and more and more. They're pretty good athlete, but they're not like the most gifted kid, right? Who can go. How do you convince them that it's all a stage process? Like they can get there, but they may not. It's not that they're not talented. It's just that their process is going to be different than his process or her process, right? How do you convince them that it's a long-term thing? Like if you want to get there, these are the stages, but it doesn't have to be rushed, you know, because you'll never get there if you do that.
Yeah. I'll try to answer this quickly because I have to go to a meeting in a few minutes here. But
no, you're good.
Yeah, I think with anything in life, I mean, it's a process. Whether that's school, you go from grade to grade to grade. That's usually the analogy I make with parents. Like you don't get results overnight, especially if you're an athlete who maybe isn't as genetically gifted as the kid next to them. Maybe you aren't naturally fast, so some kids have to work a little bit harder than others. And even then, even when they put in all of the right training, they might not still be faster than that genetically gifted kid. So then the conversation is, well, did they learn good, healthy habits with training and nutrition? Can we make this more than just about sport performance? Can we remember that they're only going to play their sport for a finite amount of time, but what are the lessons we really teaching them with this type of training? And I think too often parents get sucked into, well, what's the outcome? Is my kid getting faster? Are they going to, you know, get a starting position on their team? It's like, yeah, all those things are great, but we also have to also remember what's the bigger picture of the lessons we learn through sport and through training.
Excellent.
No doubt. Well, very well said.
100%.
We'll let you go. Excellent. Go enjoy your day.
It's a busy day.
Erica, thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got this going. If we can, listen, and if we can do anything moving forward, you know, we'd be more than happy to help in any way, shape, or form. And we really appreciate you coming on and you know, kind of letting our viewers know, you know, maybe a different viewpoint on a lot of things. So continue to fight the fight, girl. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Take care.
All right,
bye.
All right. Very good. Good stuff. Very good stuff. Interesting and developing
dude,
my own theories on how to make this a little better for a lot of people.
The more we talk to it's everybody is kind of
not just for myself. I'm trying to make it myself better for my own life, but in my own
course.
Kids. But I see other kids.
Right.
That are really good athletes.
And you know she's dealing with it, dude. Like, you know, she has kids playing club, playing team, doing this sport, multiple sports outside of their main sport, on top of training and doing this and doing that. And it's so hard because, like you said, Dave, everybody wants to be constantly keeping up with Joneses, or, you know, like there are parents just hear what they hear and they feel like they have to do these things. Like, it's like you really don't. You know what I mean? Like, I think she said it best when she was like, dude, you'd probably get more going in the backyard and kicking the ball around with your kid themselves than, you know, individualizing a tournament or this or that, or whatever team you feel like you have to play on. And then ultimately you could do all those things and still not get where you want to go. So it's a tough fight. It's a hard road, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. What I brought Troy to one of the guys that he trains with in basketball. I finally brought, he's been gone for, I don't know, 8 weeks or whatever. And I finally brought him back to him. And I said, he'll tell you if everything's
right. He'll
good.
let you know. He'll let you know.
And I said, I just kind of said, the only thing, he didn't get to play in the AAU. He goes, this is a guy that played college basketball Division II. And he goes like this, he goes, who cares?
Right.
Like, when you, like, guys get it. Like, he's like, who cares? Like, I mean, it's like, and I'm sure he played endless amounts of AAU, you know what I mean? Right. But he was like, who cares? And so it's good that he can get back and he can work. And, listen, I know one-on-one stuff is very expensive, so it's not for everybody. But one of the things I do like about it is that you're just with the coach, and he can really scale down or up depending on how you're feeling, which allows him to really focus on just you. Yes. And I honestly think it's a lot more fun for the kids because
of course
he knows them better. Now I understand you're probably better off, most people, if you're going to do some sort of group training, like 2 or 3 people with one, because he can still focus on you. It's a little bit less expensive and you're getting just about the same thing. But, but there, to me, there's nothing like, obviously competition is important and all that kind of stuff. And that's where the little small group stuff really helps. But like if you want one-on-one really, really allows, and obviously it's crazy expensive to do it, but one-on-one does allow your kid to and the coach to build a relationship with each other, which is hard, very, very hard to get.
When you're worried about all these other kids, dude, you gotta worry about the masses. And hey, I might have to play him at a different position because it helps the team, right? But now when I'm one-on-one, all right, now we can work on what you need,
whatever you need to do.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so anyway, she was great. Really good stuff. I tell you, the one thing I did get out of it is that soccer is a tough nut. Like you could see her brain churning because she's a soccer player. And it's like she doesn't want to step up because obviously probably most of her clients are soccer players. She doesn't want to step on anybody's toes, which I completely understand. But soccer is a tough one because
bro.
The club, it's so big club wise, and
that's the ultimate of club stuff, right?
It's like a different level of basketball, even
not even close. It's totally, because outside of this country, right? Your club is the main thing. Yes. It's not your high school team, it's your club team. And that adds when you start mixing high school teams with club team.
That's the hard thing about. So that's the American model.
It's just so different, dude, than the international model.
The American model, the original American model in the schools and all that stuff is really the right model. Okay. Recreation in young, a little bit of travel. I'm talking about like the 90s, 2000s.
Yeah.
That was probably the sweet spot. Like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You go to your whatever school you're going to go to. You play for that school. You do most of the stuff within those programs. That model gave more of a break and development, right?
Absolutely.
The club model in Europe works. But here's why it works in Europe. There is no scholastic, okay?
Correct.
So what's the problem in America is we're doing both. We're doing scholastic and club.
Yep. We're trying to smash it all together.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work because the school,
too much.
The kid in the school, they want him doing this, right? And if you're in the, especially most coaches are from the original American model.
Of course,
is important, right? Well, the club guys apply like the European everywhere else in the world, and they're like, "Why do you care about the school? Like this is
right. Like that doesn't mean anything."
That doesn't. So it's really, really and you could argue that's why we have such a crazy college model, because the college model is still the original American model that we're trying to make into a club model.
Yeah,
we're trying to make the colleges into a club. Like into a pro club, right? Like, so it's really. It's strange and it's hard to, and the European model works because they don't care. Like if you go to a school, if you go to Oxford and you're playing like, I don't know, like you're playing soccer at Oxford. That's just quote unquote like they call it club in college, but it's like recreation, right? It's just rec. It's you playing with your friends as like intramurals. That's the word, intramurals. It's intramurals, right? Which is totally different because if you're really good,
totally different.
If you're really good and you're at university at say Oxford, you're still playing with your club team, the pro feeder system, right? And so those models don't like cross pollinate. And what we've done is we've tried to take both models and mesh them
together. Yeah,
it doesn't work. Like, and football is probably the last one that, for the most part, hangs on to the school model that still works. The school model still works because football's so expensive to run a football program anywhere else other than high school and in college, right? So it's a little bit protected, at least for now. It's protected, right? So there's you still kind of, when you go to high school, like pretty much you play for the most. You might play 7-on-7 in the spring or something, or go to camps. But you're still not really in a club. The model is not as big a deal as it is playing for your school. Is still a big deal. Like
not yet,
right? Like still, you live in Frisco, Texas, and you play in that monster stadium. Like that's more important, right? So I don't know, if that gets infiltrated or not.
You're also seeing and I've seen it where families that come from outside the U.S. don't get it. They're like, what do you mean school matters more than they look at it the other way, right? Where this is my kid's club team. Like, that's what we're talking about, right? And it's like, not here. It's a little different. It's not. It's really not. So it's definitely like that battle of educating. And I think Eric has the right idea. Like, look, you can only educate as much as you can, and ultimately they're going to make the decision on their own, anyway. So it just kind of is what it is. You got to do your best and hope that it works out and prevent injuries. That's really what I think the foundation you have to do is we're doing this so your kid does not get hurt. Right. And those types of things where I don't think that's even a thought process for some people.
Yeah, it's very, very, it's an interesting thing in youth sports, and it's an interesting thing in the high school level. And you in basketball, you do I don't know, where did the kid who was going to St. Rose transfer to Mount Verdi, right? So the star from St. Rose. Right. So a lot of these kids, like Mount Verdi is a school, but it's really a club, right? Like if you were to say what is 100%. It really? IMG. It's a school, but it's really a club team that they put into the school model. And that's what they're trying to do in the colleges is kind of like the Mount Verdi IMG. Like these are becoming for-profit organizations.
They're trying to do both within because they feel look, you even look at like IMG doesn't compete in the Florida State playoffs because they can't. They're by rule. So it's you know what I mean? It's
Mount Verdi.
I don't know. It might be easier with basketball. Too, right? It might be. Yeah, they're Florida. Yeah, but I believe, and don't get this. Because majority of IMG's roster doesn't come from the state of Florida itself is why they cannot participate in the Florida State playoffs. I don't know how it is with basketball. Probably, I doubt that 50% of their roster comes from Florida, right? But I don't know how that works with, hoops and whatnot. But that's definitely how I'm 90% positive that's the reason IMG can't participate in it, right? And why ultimately the national championship, they're the national champion in high school football. It's like a mythical type of thing. It's a freaking, a bunch of rankings thrown together. It's not like you're actually playing these other teams that are in the top 10, although would be kind of cool, but different when it comes to football because it's just a different beast physicality wise and ages and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that the in college this year, Cooper Flag was from Mount Verdi. Well, there was a bunch of kids that were in the Final Four that were all on Cooper Flag's team. It was crazy. Right. I was like, wait a minute. So if Mount Verdi, if there was Mount Verdi University, those kids just went to Mount Verdi University, that would probably be the best in college. That would be the best in college.
Not yet. Wouldn't even be close.
Right. So that's an example of really if they did that, like a professionalization of, like that's what the European model is. Like
That's what it is.
You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
you just jump to the next level, and you're just
Yep.
playing at a higher level against.
But they also like look like you might be this level, but we're A, B, C, D. You know what I mean in terms of
true.
competitiveness. Like so,
they have
they're
the
actually
right.
The levels change things
Spread
and
out
matter.
better. It's better done.
So it doesn't look like, you know, oh wow, that person's really good and this team's shit, right? Like because they balance it so that everybody's, you know what I mean? Because if you're constantly getting your ass kicked, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Like so they track it or they, you know what I mean?
Dude,
It's differentiated.
Do that? Because
dude, no idea, bro.
They must have. I mean, obviously, it's hundreds of years of a system, so
they know what they're doing and it works. You know what I mean? Like
they do it in basketball too in Europe, and they do it like they have like I really just don't know enough about it because I just I'm in America and I don't watch enough of it. So, but like it's amazing like how soccer like has like in Europe like the Premier League and then there's the league below it. They're all getting paid.
Yep.
I guess it's just different levels depending on how you're getting paid different amounts.
The closest thing here is baseball because you have AAA, AA, single A, right? Like there's levels that you go with it. But how many times do you see guys just leave high school and go right to those clubs and skip college and don't play college baseball because, I mean, that's, I don't know, probably financially in certain situations, that's the reasoning for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has anything to do with the prestige of it. Like, hey, I'm a AAA baseball player or, hey, I'm a starting college baseball player. Might have some, maybe depends on, the school you go to or whatnot. But with NIL now, like, do baseball players now continue to play college baseball? I mean, shit, I just saw that Quinn Evers could have signed a better deal in terms of NIL, quarterback from Texas, right? Drafted by Miami Dolphins. He could have gotten more money to transfer for his senior year and go to another school than he did his signing bonus and signing with the Dolphins being drafted where he was drafted. That's going to be a fucking huge
and he was
thing.
drafted in the 7th round. And more than likely, unless he's Brock Purdy, is going to be out of the league in a few years as a 7th rounder. So it's.
Do you now stay in college and suck as much of that as you can? Because let's think about it. Like, would you rather graduate college and go deliver pizzas so you get a real job, or would you rather play football and make hundreds of thousands of dollars? Well, to me, it's not really. It's not even. That's not even a question. Like, what are we doing? Yeah.
Well, basketball has the lowest number of guys that have entered the draft in a very long time.
And the NBA draft was never freaking like a big wazoo because you had international guys coming in, right? And they're like, there's just so much that goes into every other draft other than the NFL.
Well, the big reason is they're getting NIL money, so they're not. Who wants to come out and be a round 2?
That's what I'm saying. No, and sit the bench.
You're going to G League. You're going to G League,
which is absolutely. I mean, but team or
you can make $100,000. $200,000,
right?
At St. John's,
or what are you? You're a 7th round draft pick. You get cut in rookie mini camp, and what are you gonna? You go to the UFL?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Like, we keep want to say, "Oh, it's the kids. It's the kids." No, it's the model. It's what they're working with, right? Like, unless you're getting the worst advice in the world, everybody is gonna say, stay in college, take this money, do what you can do, continue to get better, all those kinds of things. Like, we're setting them up for whatever. Yeah. Dude. And I'm not even talking about like the other stuff that goes along with college. Like, it's amazing. Like, come on, man. Like,
best time of your life.
Hands down. Sorry to hate to ruin everybody thinking of the future, but like, enjoy it, guys. Enjoy it.
Great thing. Really good pod. She did a great job. By the way, I was confused.
What does she use, like an author name on the book? You know what I mean? You know how some guys.
By the way, she didn't answer my question, so I felt bad. Like, so
it's okay. Well, she did just move, so
I wasn't sure if that was a that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, if it was.
I'm definitely. I believe she's like Tampa area, Florida too. So damn.
I think it's a writer. It's either her writer name or she's got married. You know what I'm saying? And that
Yeah,
was
what do
her.
they call that? Like a pen name or some nonsense or some whatever. I
Yeah,
don't even know that.
I couldn't figure out she didn't.
I know Dave Schumann published his own book, Dave Schumann. Like, it ain't, whatever. Come up with something else, dude. Like, I
I don't know,
didn't.
maybe I didn't know if it was a sensitive time. I just went away from it because I was like, oh, I don't really know.
We're good at that, dude. I think that's one of our skills.
I was like, okay,
we can read a room really well.
Because at first I was like,
well, listen, I'll be honest. That meeting right there, or that,
am I looking at the wrong book? I'm like,
I'm telling you, that podcast, and this is what's happening a lot, not a lot, but like more than it ever has before, is like that podcast has been booked for like 5 weeks, dude. Like that's been on the schedule for this date for 5 weeks out. Wow. Yes, because of like, hey, I got this going on, but I want to whatever, and I don't like, you know what I mean? Like, no, and that's been like locked in. And yesterday was the first, like, hey, I'm moving, like all this stuff. I'm like, dude, as long as you come on the pod, like, I just, that differentiation of, hearing her view of what it was, and especially where she came from, because I love talking to, there's something about me personally that when somebody has played the sport itself and has gone through what the stuff we're talking about, maybe not directly. I mean, and she's also, look, she graduated from Johns Hopkins, dude. Like, she's got some degrees. She ain't no dummy. Like, she gets the whole, like, whatever comes down to it. But just more advocates in terms of, like, we're talking about a youth sports epidemic right now. And I don't know what changes it or what tweaks it or any of those other kind of things. But, like, as a high school coach, man, it is extremely difficult dealing with the youth sports coming in because they've been like fed all of these things, and everything she talked about 100% spot on with injuries, burnout, all of those things, dude.
Do you feel like
it is real?
Do you feel like since we coach together, which is now going to be it'll be 4 years, I guess. Do you think in that short time period it has changed?
100%. Like, not even close. Like I think
I don't remember dealing with too much at that time.
Absolutely not. And we were at a program where there was a solid feeder and an established youth sports in everything, right? Like, it's on a whole different level. I understand that it's for here, it's, town specific in terms of some feeders are different than what I am seeing is a switch in, if you're an established, like if you're a high school coach that's been at a school for a long time and you have a really good relationship with your feeder, I don't think much has really changed. The thing that's changed is the approach by parents and their outlook on things, whether it be the intensity that they have, the expectations have now changed. And I think the view of more of an individual outlook in terms of, look, youth sports were always, quote, daddy ball and those types of things. But now you're seeing it doesn't matter if daddy's whatever. It is my kid this, my kid that. And always, look, and I obviously always go back to football because that's what I do. But that's the ultimate team game. And you're seeing now to now add the me factor in on such a different level of everybody wants to be the star and the social, and now throw social media and the only things that parents are seeing in terms of like, this guy's getting money and this guy's going to this school, and parents never saw that unless, they kind of went out of their way to see that, or the high school coach being that bridge or that gap with recruiting or getting your son to the next level, right? Because getting recruited is individual. That doesn't have much to do with team stuff other than, if your team wins, they probably get more eyes on them because they play more games, right? So they have more opportunities to be visible. But I think now social media has almost, cut that out of it. Yeah. Like, and now it's, why do you think everybody wants to be the quarterback? Because they're the ones that are in the limelight, or, the receiver, or, whatever that primetime position is. And then when
do you know that we're the only, and not all of our teams in club, but we're the only club that carries 2 quarterbacks at a time. You know that?
Because why?
No one does that.
But what is always the issue? No,
Right. It's
because we lay it out, and our kids and our parents, for the most part, understand this is how it works. They both play, and then when we get to games that quote matter, playoffs, it's what it is. Now it's best play, and they get that. I think that's because we hammer that from the jump, right? But I can totally understand. Remember the model, right? You also have people that are now paying a lot more than we charge, and now there's an expectation that I pay, I play,
right,
and we lay that out like, look, you pay and you play, but like you might not play as much,
right?
Yeah, and then we also stress, Dave. We also stress too, like, hey man, you might have to go play another position some tournaments, or maybe if you want, you can go and do that, right? And that's where I think the kid and the parent sometimes are on opposite ends of the spectrum. That kid might want to go play another position, but mom or dad is, no, you're the quarterback, and that's all you're going to do. That's another thing that's like.
That's a good point. So that's right. That's probably why we have so many kids that play for other clubs too. So it's interesting because
and we also don't make a big deal.
We don't make a big deal out of it. Yeah, it
like matter. If we wanted to be salty sour about that,
I don't like play for whoever you want to play for. It doesn't matter.
It's also why these guys like hammer home. We have practice. We have practice. We have practice, and we're like.
Well, that's where I started coming up with this, and part of it is like.
It's a little bit of Tony, right? It's a little bit of Tony Holler philosophy in terms of like lessons.
Yeah, a lot of it's Tony opened up my eyes on it.
We push other sports, so we want kids doing other sports.
And the other thing was,
when we're doing this,
I think when my son was beat up from that and had to go into boot, it also opened my eyes up as like these kids are growing, right? And
dude. Like, especially at the ages we focus on, man.
Like, you have to, like, if they're sore, you have to recognize that.
Yeah.
And it's not, there's something
some of them are coached or told not to say those things.
Well, they're growing so fast. Like, so
puberty is a real deal thing. We talk about it all the time. Is your kid actually skilled in this, or did he just hit puberty before everybody else?
Well, the other thing is this: when they're like 4, your daughter's 2?
2 in July.
2 in July. Okay, so when they get to like 3 and 4, like and 5, and like you're playing in the yard or whatever, they can go all day, and it doesn't matter what they do. They're not going to get hurt. Like I mean, unless they jump off some building or something crazy. But like,
which is what used to happen. And now, when's the last time you saw a kid with a cast walking around, dude? I heard a great reel the other day. It was like, dude, you used to walk into my 5th grade classroom, and it was like, a freaking, ER, right? Like, who's got a cast here? Because nobody does that shit anymore. And they don't play rough.
No, because you know what happens? As soon as they get rough, there's always a parent there. Yeah, there's always a parent there. So they're like, "Hey, stop pushing each other." So they don't work it out.
It's why
I've told, like, when I see them disagreeing, I'm like, unless they get like nasty, like, like, but a little bit of like
fight, a little bit of that's okay. I think that's a healthy level of, and that's also a healthy level of conflict
resolution. Conflict resolution, right?
Like, you need to allow them, and I heard it, and I'm going to screw it up, but it's like, you need to allow them to do, like, I don't want to say dangerous, but you need them to do things like that, but in a safe way. Like, you can monitor it. Like, look, if my little dog, obviously she's almost 2, right? So she is like everything, right? I this, I that, right? Like, dude, if she's climbing on something, like, I have to allow her to climb on it, right? And then, look, I'm there if she's gonna like slip, fall, and like hurt herself seriously. But a little bit of that, of like, she needs to know like how to test the waters a little bit or experience something that be like right there, right? And then it's like, do you see? You could get hurt, right? Now, whether she takes that and understands it, because 5 minutes later she's gonna be doing the same shit. But like the parents, in my eyes, and this is my opinion, and this is how I'm gonna parent, like the ones that are like, oh, be careful, or oh, you can't do that, or oh, this, or oh, that, and you never allow them to experience that. I think you're setting them up for failure in some way, shape, or form, because they just don't know, you know what I mean, that world or anything like that. Or, you know, it's why when we get, as a freshman, a big lineman, right? Biggest dude, right? But he's never played ball. And everybody's like, oh, he's going to be a monster. He's going to be able to be physical and push kids around and do all. Well, no, dude. He's going to be the softest one there because he's always been bigger than everybody. And he's been told his whole life, go easy on the kids. Go easy. Go easy. Go
Don't
easy.
Bully him. Don't bully him.
Don't do that. He's smaller than you. And now we're asking him to flip a switch and be like, drive that dude into the ground. Like, sorry, guys.
True. No, that's going to take time.
You know?
That's going to take time for them to do.
It's okay that you do that, right? I think
But
that's why
they won't let them play football anyway. Like they don't let them.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's
football.
why football is not the game we're used to, like not the game we grew up in terms of physicality, because, you know, we can't get hurt, go easy, right? Like that's not right. You shouldn't push people around, or, you know, don't hit somebody when, like, you know, our coaches were like,
you're playing sprint football eventually.
Dude, you got to run through his throat, and anybody that comes across the middle goes down, and that's it. Like there wasn't.
Can you imagine?
It's why. Listen,
can you imagine one day if there's no linemen? Basically, everything's gonna be sprint football.
Getting there. We're getting there.
Sprint football. You got people should start looking at what sprint football does. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like with the sprint college football. Or what's that place that has it? That you're friends with the guy,
Caldwell, Coach Matsakis.
Caldwell, yes. So like. You got to go look at what sprint football does, because basically that's what you got in the line.
Well, here's what else, and this is the other thing, and people hate me for this one, right? You ever notice now, like, when did everybody start taking a knee when somebody got hurt?
Oh, it's everywhere all the time.
Dave, when did that become a thing? Look, I get it. We took a knee.
I remember when I was coaching, I remember people did it.
I remember, like, we took a knee when somebody was injured, when, like, somebody was down for longer than, like, 7 minutes.
Serious.
Now someone goes down, and you're like, oh, like, everybody take a knee. We're out there praying. I'm like, he's getting up in 2 seconds. He's got a cramp. Okay, guys, I get it.
When I was in college, you know what happened when you blew out your knee? I don't think they did this when you were in college. Move the drill.
Every time. And people, when I say that shit, people are like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, look, I know I'm not the most empathetic person in the world, but look, my old man was like, look, if it's not a lower extremity injury, get your ass off the field. Like, if you can breathe and, like, gimp, get off the field. You don't lay there, right? Now, look, that's one way of parenting. I get it. But now I'm like, we're taking a knee every time guys take a knee. I'm like, he's cramping. He's going to be off the field before we even take a knee. It's okay, bro. They try it. And the kids look at me like, oh, shit, coach is crazy. I'm like, dude, what are we doing?
So this is funny. So I can't remember. It was earlier in the baseball season, and the kid that goes to school with Troy. He was rounding second base. Okay, I've actually never seen this happen before. He's rounding second base. The kid throwing the ball in to, like, the cutoff.
Yeah. From the outfield,
actually hits him as he's rounding second base, like with the ball. He went down like a
ball.
Like I mean, the kid threw a rock. He didn't obviously expect it because he's rounding second base. He got smacked. He went down. My assistant coach, I'm the assistant. The head coach comes running over, and I come walking over, and he's like, he said to him, and the guy played college sports, is a great coach, by the way, great guy. And he goes, he's like, we need a pinch runner. I'm like, he doesn't need a pinch runner. I was like, get up, and I'm like, get up. And he went back to second. I'm like, do you want a pinch runner? Do you want someone else to score for you, or do you want to score? He goes,
you just hit the double.
Yeah, he had a great shot. He goes.
But I think that goes
I'm
back
like, go on second base. I'm like, he's fine.
Like,
I think he was
now,
horrified, though.
and look, I get
when I
all the other kids, because like, look, now you have mom running out from the bleachers, like, is
Every
Jimmy
time.
okay? I'm like, he's fine, dude. Meanwhile, my old man would have been like, get your ass up and run the bases. Like, what do we like? I'm sorry, I get it. It's just there still needs to be a level of like, come on, man. Like, you got to push through some things here to know, like, and I just had this conversation.
By the way, if he said no,
that's okay. Okay, that's fine.
Him out.
I'm not in the business of making it. I honestly now think the hardest job, which I always thought was a hard job. I mean, hard and easy at the same time, right? A high school athletic trainer, right? Because at the end of the day, look, okay, you have an injury, go to the doctor, right? But also, like, the things these kids go to the trainer for are unbelievable. Like, one, and it has to do with society, because one, I would have never, first off, majority of the injuries or being hurt I hid because my buddies would have busted my ass, like busted me on like, dude, you're going to go to the trainer for that? Or, dude, you're not hurt. Get back on the field. There's none of that anymore because everything is bullying, right? So that's the first part of it. Then you go to the trainer and it's like, oh, well, it's like, dude, you have a freaking, like, tape your fingers together. Like, I can't believe you're actually in here for this, right? Like, but now you have to err on the side of caution, and God forbid that, like, is a broken finger, and now mom is all up in your, like, I just think it's probably the hardest gig, dude. Not because of like, it's just volume, right? Like,
they used to have. I mean, they might still. I don't know. I'm not coaching high school anymore, so I don't know.
Yeah,
in high school, they used to have, besides the trainer, they used to have the doctor on the sideline.
Always, yes, because you can't play a game without a doctor. But I can't tell you how many times.
Did they still do that or no?
But I can't tell you how many times.
I feel like they don't assert themselves. If there's a situation that's an injury, meaning like, let's say a kid comes off with a sprained ankle. Okay.
I don't want it. They're just there, dude.
In the old days, they used to be like, he's good to go. He's okay. Wrap him up.
Not on them anymore.
No, they let the trainer do it
because
they don't get involved. Do you notice
this is their argument.
Okay.
You're the trainer. You know these athletes better than I do.
But, like, doesn't he that's the thing I'm always confused by. Like, if you're a medical doctor and your job is to assess injuries, right? You're an orthopedic. That's why you're there.
How many, like, oh.
Are they just surgeons now? Or is that all they are now? Are they just surgeons? And so now they don't even have the knowledge on that? Because maybe that is the case. Maybe they're orthopedic surgeons they put on the side.
And obviously, like, this is a slippery slope, but when dealing with the concussion world, right? Like, oh, know him better than I do. So, like, I know if if Jimmy's over there and the doctor's asking him, like, hey, what's, like, I don't know.
The NFL has all different doctors out there. They have them all. They have the ortho. They have the head guy. They have multiple guys there.
It is different. Everybody's so concerned with, I don't want to be sued. Whether it's the school itself, whether it's the doctor, the trainer, of course. Hey, when in doubt, send them to the doctor. But I make my athletes very aware of it. Look, you go to the trainer, you're missing at least 3 days of practice. I just tell them that because it's base work. I said, you go to the doctor, you go to the trainer and say your head hurts, you're missing 2 weeks automatic, like, regardless, dude. So, and I'm not that guy that's like, don't go to the trainer, because I get it. Like, it is what it is. But you need to know the difference between an injury and hurt. And football, you're never healthy. Something's always going to be nagging or banged up or this or that. But, look, if you roll your ankle, dude, you don't need to be walking around in a boot. Like, if you're a person that, like, you guys all want to play college football, but the first little injury you have, you're out, and you need to go see a trainer for whatever. And I know I was different personally because, like I said, like, hey, there's a level of toughness and, being raised a certain way. It's like, look, you don't go to the trainer unless like I broke my collarbone, like, shit, dude, this hurts. I need help. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or I did have a concussion in college where it was like, I have to go see the trainer. I don't remember 25 plays in team. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't remember it. I have to go, right? Like, I tore an ACL. I'm like, look, I'm walking around on this thing for 4 days. It's pretty swollen and it still hurts. I better go see the trainer. Like, you know what I mean? I better go see a doctor. Like, you got to know yourself, your body. But some guys just aren't raised like that, Jimmy, if you get hurt, make sure you go see your trainer. And, or I just don't like the guys or the people that go, what is it? Like the hierarchy, right? Like, you better go, if you get hurt at practice, you better go see the trainer before you go to the ortho. Don't just go home and tell mom, like, hey, I hurt my finger. If you really have something, trainer, like, coach first, trainer, and then the trainer will determine, hey, you need to go to the specialist. You need to go get x-rays. You need to do this, right? I just think that hierarchy needs to always stay in place. And, but I think they don't know that because they go to these, you know what I mean? Like, do you have trainers at your youth games? No, you have what? Ambulance, EMS, like sitting there in the end zone in case something happens. Do they do anything unless the coach says, hey, we need you? They sit in an end zone, bro. Right? If you have that.
That's true. If you have, I think we do have them at games.
And just like what we deal with, like, but like, well, that's a good thing, though.
Yeah.
Listen, and look, obviously now everybody specializes it. Like, coaches back in the day used to have to be the trainer too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember up until my sophomore year of high school, we only had a trainer come to the game on game day. So guess who taped my rolled ankle Tuesday through Thursday, right? It was an assistant coach. So I feel like coaches had to wear a lot of other hats back in the day. I mean, look, I can do it. I can tape ankles, like, no doubt. Like, but now anybody can do it. They can YouTube it and figure out how to tape an ankle if you really wanted to. Everybody's just so worried about that liability aspect because, we have seen people get screwed for that stuff before. So it's crazy, dude.
It's interesting. It's interesting how, like, just in a short time period.
Very short, Dave. It is so, like, different. It is so different. I try and tell you all the time, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard when you're not in it. I mean, look.
I'm not in it. I'm only in it.
But even like the recruiting stuff is on such a different level of, like, it's just all of those things. But, like, the athlete themselves, I don't think that's changed much. I think they still want to be coached. I think they want to be coached hard. I think they want structure, because everybody's so quick to be like, oh, it's the athlete. It's the athlete. It's the athlete. It's really not, dude. It's the difference is, like, when they get in the car, like, mom and dad, the first thing they tell them is, you should get the ball more. Your coach doesn't know shit. Like that. Like, it should be like, hey, where are we going to eat? Like, what do you want? Like, hey, like, put the phone down. Let's have a conversation. Right? They dive right into that. Oh, did they post a picture of me from the game? Or, is our score there? Like, how many likes did we get? Nobody gives a shit. They're like, come on, man. Like, focus on the smaller things. It's hard though, because Dave, that's the world you're living in. I mean,
if I could, in my business,
we all are.
Obviously.
I think we all are. We
right.
all are. I want notoriety on my program. I know that the better social media stuff that we have, the more enticing it is to, check out 100%. I mean, and that's, or just, hey, how come we don't do this because they do that? Like,
right. That is hard.
I'm like, because I don't have a photography guy that can come run a drone every day and we can't, like, or because, hey, like, we're not allowed to do some of these things in terms of, like, whatever, it's a policy. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, they do a media shoot, or these kids go visit this place, or they work out at that place. I said, all right, well, would you like to pay for that stuff? Like, because it all comes back to money, right? Like, how come they have this type of field and we don't? All right, well, we have to do 5 other schools if we do that. They need the same things we do. Well, I'm sorry, you should have picked a better town to move to. I don't know what to tell you. You should have done more of your homework, dude. You should have done more of your homework.
Oh my God, it's very it's.
What do you mean they can't transfer to another school? They have to sit out. I said, well, there's rules, right? Like it's not just, okay, like, and what you see on social media isn't exactly the truth. Like, it's just so interesting, man. So interesting.
It is. It's mind blowing. Actually, it's very difficult, and I'm sure it's very difficult in high school. And you're managing multiple. Everybody has their own priority, which definitely, like, I'm sure that's contributed to the turnover in coaching.
Because and this is my theory, COVID opened the eyes to a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially coaches and teachers. It slowed everything down and allowed that time when everything was stopped to be like, wow. Like, one, we can do things in a way more efficient way, right? We don't have to grind and be present to get things that we need to get things done, right?
Right.
And then it just ultimately, I think it was like, holy hell, like, I'm off doing whatever I'm doing. Like, this is all still going on. Like, we get so wrapped up in like this, we don't look at this. And I think that was extremely eye-opening for a lot of people, especially coaches, to be like, man, do I really have to be doing all this shit? Like, you know what I mean?
It's a great point. I mean, it's that part is like, it's without seeing it anymore. It's I'd love to like bounce around at like
be a fly. Yeah, well, go. Yeah, dude, you should go from like camp to camp to camp to camp to camp and just see how everybody does things and be like, wow, that guy still does shit like that. Or, oh my goodness, like I would have never even thought to that. Like, that's why I try to go to a lot of. That's why I love like the people we talk to see like what do they do in their program, or how is it in that state, or that's Division III compared to FCS, and that's FBS compared to this, compared to that, like those things, and like talking to those guys, and even like within the network, like from this career and doing all those kind of things, just having those random conversations of just like, oh, that's interesting, that's a good way to do it, or I never thought about it like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, shit, I walked into a weight room the other day and was like, wow, how come they have their bars like that with the weights? Oh, they use the weights as the rack for the hex bar. Okay, that works. Like, let's do that rather than just have them stacked up looking stupid. I'm like, idiot. Why didn't I think of that sooner? Like, let's
the weights as the rack. Oh yeah.
So the rubber weights that you would use for like cleans. I didn't have a rack for the hex bars. They were just stacked like up in a corner looking like disheveled and terrible. So they took the rubber weights, the 45-pound rubber weights, stacked 3 of them, and you put the freaking hex bar in it. It's a rack. It ain't falling over. And you're only using the rubber weights if you use the hex bar. So what are we doing? Like, I'm like, shit. Like, now I don't have to go spend $250 on a rack.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Oh yeah.
And no, I was like, wait a minute. Like, I was like, why'd you do that? And then I'm like, he's like, oh, we're idiots. I'm like, yeah, I know, dude. Okay.
Well, all right. Let's wrap it up.
Sound good.
Good one.
See you tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. All right. Cool.